This episode is proudly supported by Montague, handpicked for you.
So the eating experience of our plums is sweet. That's a primary driver. It's got to be sweet, but it's also got to have enough acid, because the mix of acid and sugar is what gives fruit its flavour. And in a plum, it tends to be slightly higher acidity. And then a really nice, full, not dry, but juicy explosion of juice into your mouth as you bite into it. That's nirvana for us in terms of plum.
For more information, go to montague.com.au.
That's where the quality of those prawns should actually be. There's not a lot of them, we're talking about 1,800 to 2,000 tonne a year. That prawn really needs to focus on going to the better restaurants in Australia. And if it's celebrated like that, then everybody will do much better for it.
This is Fishtales, a seafood podcast. I'm John Susman. Growing up in Port Lincoln, a kid is surrounded by a close-knit and supportive community with a strong sense of pride in the town's heritage and traditions. The town is known for its laid-back and relaxed lifestyle, and many residents enjoy spending time outdoors, exploring the natural beauty of the surrounding area. Fishing and seafood play a large role in the local economy, and as a result, kids growing up in Port Lincoln are often exposed to the industry from a young age. They may have the opportunity to participate in fishing and boating activities, learn about the local marine environment and its importance to the community. Growing up as a fifth-generation fisherman in a town like Port Lincoln is a unique experience, steeped in tradition and a strong connection to the sea. Fishing is not just a job, but a way of life passed down from generation to generation, and it's a source of pride for the family and the community. From a young age, kids learn the skills and knowledge necessary to be successful in the seafood industry. For Andrew Puglisi, growing up as a fifth-generation fisherman in Port Lincoln gave him a unique and rich cultural heritage, as well as a deep connection to the sea and the environment. Throughout his career, he and his family business, Kinkawooka, have moved from prawn fishing to tuna ranching and mussel farming. In this special 3-part interview, we hear about Puggsys' life as a fifth-generation Port Lincoln waterman.
Hi, I'm Andrew Puglisi. I'm a fifth-generation fisherman who is based in Port Lincoln, South Australia. I grew up in Port Lincoln, South Australia. I was born in Ballina. When I was about 12 months old, the old man was prawn fishing in Ballina and instead of going to the Gulf of Carpentaria, where his mates were going to go catch prawns up in 1967, we moved down to Port Lincoln, and he started up prawn fishing in Spencer Gulf, and I've been there all my life. Port Lincoln's a beautiful little place, and it's really evolved over time. But it's one of Australia's largest, most diverse fishing ports, with the different amounts of fish that are there to catch, and the volumes that actually go through the port are a major part of the Australian produce. My father was my idol type of thing, so I always was going to be a prawn fisherman, So I grew up there helping the old man mend nets and that type of thing. So whenever he went prawn fishing, the next door neighbours knew he would go on fishing because they could hear me screaming from across the road. So I was a fisherman, and I always wanted to be a fisherman. And I left school and after year 11, and Mum was kicking and screaming trying to get me to stay for a bit longer, but I got out of there, and my apprenticeship was on a prawn trawler. So I did that for 20 years, and it was an education that set me up for where I am today.
Life as a deckhand on a prawn boat is a unique and challenging experience, offering a young boy the chance to learn new skills from close relationships and develop a deep appreciation for the sea and the fishing industry. It's a demanding but ultimately rewarding way of life that gets deep into the DNA of an aspiring fisherman.
I worked for some Croats. They were driving the boat, and I was the young owner's son who got beaten up a bit, over the time, and it got me. It gave me an education made me grow up pretty quick in the real world. You can't play the games you used to play at school in the real world. So it was really exciting times. You know, the fishery was strong and booming. And I just sat there knowing that I wanted to be a fisherman, I wanted to drive a boat, and it was something that I spent 7 years on the deck, started at the bottom, worked my way up through the ranks to run the deck for the last 4 or 5 years. I was on the deck and drove the boat for the next 13, 14 years, and that got me through to 2000, and I came off the prawn trawler to help the old man run our tuna farm. So we got involved in tuna farming in 91, and it was getting a bigger venture for us at the time, and he needed a hand, so I came off the boat, which at the time was my heart and soul, and I really did love going to see all the different things that you could, that the sunset, sunrises, and putting in a really hard day's work, which any fisherman that goes to sea does and has to do to survive, to make a living.
The Spencer Gulf prawn fishery has undergone significant changes over the years, reflecting the broader changes and challenges facing the seafood industry. While these changes have been driven by a variety of factors, the overarching goal has been to ensure the long-term viability and sustainability of the fishery, while also meeting the growing demand for premium seafood.
I started on the prawn boat in 1984. The old man had been there since 1968, the first year that it actually started. And it evolved as a boom and bust type of fishery, as all prawn fishing does throughout the world. They go out, they'd catch the prawns until there was nothing left, and then they'd come home, type of thing. It was quite an interesting, forward thinking from the fishermen themselves, and this came from the fishermen. It didn't actually come from government. It came in. They said, if we keep doing this, we'll end up with nothing, and let's try and nurture, let's try and manage the fishery in a way that they can get more out of it over a longer period of time. At that time, they were fishing up to 120 days a year, maybe even more. And they recognised that by reducing the days at sea, they could still catch the same amount and make as much money as they were before without putting the effort into fishing into that fishery. So then they started out, and the fishermen came up with the idea, but it is absolutely in conjunction with the South Australian government. And the South Australian government were very forward thinking. They had some really great fisheries managers at the time. I can't remember their names, but they were instrumental in actually getting a system in that they could manage the fishery, recognise the peak times to go to sea, and the spawning times, avoid the spawning time, so the fish would be able to spawn. There was the juveniles going back into the sea and fish for the product that they had for next year. All that sort of stuff was really important, and they've honed that over the next 40 years, of which they've where it is today, which is a very well managed fishery. They recognise when the peaks are, and there's 2 different seasons, one pre-Christmas in November, December, and they'll do around 12 to 15 days of fishing at that time. And they catch the fish when it's just before, just after they've spawned, and making sure that catching the fish just after they've spawned, and really making sure that they catch the fish when it's a nice hard shell and it's a really high quality. And then there's another season that happens from after Christmas, in the run time of year, when there's a large volume of the large medium-sized prawn, your 10, 15 and your 16, 20. That happens between March through to the end of June in 4 trips. And they'll do about 40 days of fishing at that time of year, 35 to 40 days. The beauty of all that is they don't go out before, they go out fishing. Let's get this straight so it doesn't sound stupid. They go out fishing after the last quarter, and they fish through the dark of the moon, and then they stop fishing on the first quarter of the moon. This is the same in November, December, March, April, May, June. These are the peak times of catching the fish, and they've recognised that's when you get after when the moon comes up. Our prawns in South Australia, they bury, and so the catch. When the moon comes up, the catch is halved. So they're putting effort. They're putting, they're working the grounds for nothing really. So they maximise their time at sea, catch the most amount of fish in the short space of time, and then they leave the grounds to fallow for them to come back in the next trip. The two peak trips of the year are in April, May, and some of those guys, some of those boats, they will catch anything up to 5 or 6 ton in one night. It's traditionally a 50-ton fishery, 45 to 50 ton. They're on a bit of a down cycle at the moment where they're not catching as much as that, but they've been catching 45 to 50 ton. For 50 days of fishing. A ton a night average is pretty. It's quite outstanding in the prawn industry.
The Spencer Gulf Prawn Fishing Fleet is a group of commercial fishing vessels operating in the Spencer Gulf off the coast of South Australia. It's made up of a mix of small family-run businesses and larger, technologically driven and advanced companies. The fleet uses a range of fishing gear and technology to increase efficiency and reduce the impact on the marine environment. The fleet is a significant contributor to the local economy and provides employment and supports related businesses and services. Despite facing challenges from government policies and regulations, the fleet remains a vital part of the South Australian fishing industry, providing high-quality prawns to local and international markets.
One of the things my old man and some of his mates have sort of really shown the way with is by having the best equipment that you can have, gives you no excuses to stop you from catching fish, making more money, doing better. And they've built these boats down there that are 22 metres long. They hold about 20 tonnes of product in the freezer. They can freeze, and the better boats can freeze 5 tonnes of prawns per 24 hours. And the freezers on the old man's boat were, minus 45 degrees Celsius. So at those sort of temperatures, it's a pretty amazing sort of unit. So whenever you caught your fish, you could always put that fish away and have it as the peak perfect prawn, and that's what we're all trying to do, is produce a product that the customer can get the best quality, the best experience, so they'll come back and buy it again. The prawn boats themselves, because they don't do a lot of work, they are easy to keep in a good condition, and they've really built up the quality of those boats, really making sure that everything that happens when they go to sea is they can go and catch the prawn. The fishery's managed on a night-by-night basis. It's not a quoted fishery. It's a quoted time at sea. So if you can't go to sea because you've got a breakdown or for whatever reason, then that's the time that you miss. That's the fish that you don't catch, and that's a major part of you miss a few nights, and that's all your profit gone for the year. So the boats themselves, and when you go to sea, you go down there, they really do stand out. They're really great boats. They're really well looked after, and there's a lot of pride in the fleet there for what they're doing. Traditionally, prawn fisheries in the world, people that if you got enough money to put a boat together, you go out fishing. And that was recognised early on when they first started setting up the fishery, the management of this fishery, and they restricted the amount of vessels that are in the fleet. It is the amount of vessels now is 39 boats, and it's been that now for the last 40 years or 30 years. There's only 39 boats. They've only got 2 nets. They're only 22 metres long. They've only got 450 horsepower. And the size of the nets and the size of the mesh, all that there is restricted. So there's a consistent amount of effort going into the fishery. So it's very well managed, and it's a great formula. It's working really well. So they do average their tonne of prawns per night.
The Spencer Gulf king prawn is a species of prawn highly valued for its sweet and delicate flavour and firm, juicy texture. The Spencer Gulf king prawn is also prized for its sustainability, with responsible fishing practices ensuring the long-term viability of the fishery. It is a sought-after seafood in both local and international markets, highly valued by seafood lovers and chefs alike, and considered a delicacy in the basket of South Australia's seafood.
Spencer Gulf King is a really great prawn. You know, like it's got a really rich flavor. It has got a really rich flavour. It's got and it cooks well. And if you actually, John and I did a trip to Europe 10 years ago now, maybe a bit longer. But looking at that, comparing our prawns to our prawn to the European scarlet prawn and all those type of different prawns that are around there, and our prawn, the Spencer Gulf King, really did shape up well against all of those fish, and it ate well. It eats really well. And when you talk to guys like Mitch Tonks, the famous chefs that really really dissect the quality of a product like that, he says he couldn't eat a lot of them because they have such a rich flavour. But he did prefer that. He said it compared very favourably with the best prawns that he'd eaten out of Europe. Neil Perry's he's one of our champions, and I'm not in the prawn fishery anymore, but Neil still has Spencer Gulf Kings on the menu, and it's always one of my favourite dishes to eat whenever I go and hang out with Neil. He does a great job, and just one of those big U6, U8 prawns, one of those out of the char grill oven. It's a standard dish that I always buy whenever I go and have a meal there, and if anyone's got half a brain, they do the same as well.
Life as a fisherman can be a special and rewarding experience, offering a unique combination of adventure, challenge, independence, and connection to the natural world.
There's so many different things happen over the time, and there's plane crashes and going looking for people in the water and, all that sort of stuff. There's lots going on out there, and there's lots that doesn't too, Having some amazing, when you're out there, and you can be anything up to 20, 30 miles offshore from any shore. And so if a weather event comes through and you're out there, you get the piss belted out of you trying to get out of the wild conditions. The cool part about the fishery is they're really, really safety conscious as well, and they've got a cut off when the weather gets up over 25 knots, when the wind's blowing 25 knots, and it's very marginal when you go out there fishing. They'll call the night off and they'll add it on to the end of the trip. They try to come up with the idea that, we'll catch the prawns later. Well, that never bloody happens, but I'm a fisherman at heart, and that's just the way it is. But at least everyone comes home safe. So you had some amazing situations where, great big seas, and a wave hits the side of the boat and tries to wash you over, all that sort of stuff. So it's really good. It's when I look back on it now, it was really great fun. It's a real adventure when you do go prawn fishing. The beautiful fish that you see is something that you don't get to experience whenever you do stuff on land. And at the same time, like the boats that I've explained as how good they are at handling the fish and all the rest of it, also are really well set up to returning the bycatch back into the sea as well. They've got grading systems on the boat, and so the prawns fall through, but all the fish and the crabs and all that sort of stuff that they do catch gets returned to the sea very quickly after being put on the vessel, and it was all set up, so it's all set up for efficiency on the boat, but as it evolved, it actually has been a sustainability thing where the bycatch goes back into the sea. 95% of it all goes back alive. And part of what we actually do is the style of fishing, because you can't see prawns with the sonars or sounders or anything like that. They don't have a swim bladder, so you can see the fish. So it's a lot of trial and error. You do a short shot, see if there's what the prawns are like there. You'll try another shot just not far away. I was better back where I was. You go to the north and check to see if they're up the north or are they down the south of that shot, or you test it out to see where the most amount of prawns are to catch the most fish. That's just prawning 101. I'm not telling anything that boys don't do on an hour basis. So you'll do that, but in our fishery, because you haven't got time, it's such a dynamic fishery, and you have to catch fish quite quickly. It's sort of the way the fishery has evolved. It's sort of come out at an average shot will be around 40 minutes. So that's why the bycatch doesn't actually get beaten up and killed before it actually gets onto the boat. Because on the boat, returned to the sea, most of it's actually swimming away.
Neil Perry, as one of Australia's leading chefs and restaurateurs, is known for his passion and love of the Spencer Gulf king prawn. Perry, who is widely regarded as one of Australia's leading culinary experts, has a deep appreciation for the unique flavour and quality of the prawns, which he regularly uses in his dishes. For Puggsy, a long-standing relationship with Neil has helped him to understand exactly where his prawns end up.
Part of being a fisherman 101 is you sell to a wholesaler and you don't actually know where the hell any of your fish end up. And part of my education of hanging out with John Susman was to find out who ate our fish, where it went to, and that's where we were able to find out that our prawns go that they're a staple in the supermarkets, in the deli counter there. But they also go to and preferred by some of the best restaurants in Australia. And as I mentioned earlier on, restaurants like Margaret and Rockpool that Neil Perry championed and own. Those type of venues which really recognise a premium quality fish, premium quality prawn. And that's where they end up, and that's where the quality of the fish actually, quality of those prawns should actually be. There's not a lot of them, We're talking about 1,800 to 2,000 tonne a year. That prawn really needs to focus on going to the better restaurants in Australia, and if it's celebrated like that, then everybody will do much better for it. Your wild catch prawn, it has got so much more diversity of flavour, and like we were talking about, you'll sit there and go, oh bloody hell, prawns taste like prawns, that's crap. Yeah, but that's not the case at all. If you actually sat down and sit the prawns down there side by side and actually taste the prawn, then there is a difference in what the prawns actually taste like, and we saw that in Spencer Gulf, where you would catch the prawns on the sandy bottom. They'd be quite pale, or you'd go over the popcorn coral zones, which was just south of right in between Wallaroo and Cal. Those fish were really quite, that popcorn coral was quite a red fish, you know. And they all had slightly different flavours because you are what you eat, you know. If you eat, you know, we see that. I'm a mussel farmer as well, and you really see that in what that fish eats. When you lie them side by side, you can really taste a slight variation in flavours, you know. And the same really comes out in the prawn.
Regardless of the reason for the transition, making the switch from one fishery to another can be a major challenge for a fisherman and their family, requiring them to adapt new fishing methods, gear and regulations, as well as having to learn new markets and customers. However, with the right support and resources, many fishermen are able to make the transition successfully and continue to thrive in the fishing industry. In the next episodes of this 3-part special, we'll hear about Puggsys' transition from prawns to fishing and farming the mighty southern bluefin tuna, and then moving on to develop Australia's largest and preeminent mussel farming business. This is Fishtales, a seafood podcast. A Deep in the Weeds production. I'm John Susman. Follow us on Instagram at Fishtales Seafood Podcast, or email us at fishtalespodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay tuned for more tales from beneath the surface of the seafood world every Friday on your podcast app.